Have you ever met someone who seemed amazing? Someone charismatic, well-spoken, who made you feel important and special? But over time, you started to realize that this person only wanted to control you. It might sound like an exaggeration, but this happens far more often than you think. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Today, you're going to understand how the mind of a manipulator works, how charisma can be used as a weapon, and how the ideas of Niccolo Machiavelli, a thinker from centuries ago, are still used today by people who seek power at any cost. Stick with me until the end, and you'll find out whether you've already fallen into this kind of trap, and how to avoid falling into it again. And before we start, take a quick look down below and make sure the notification bell is turned on. That way, every time a new video like this comes out, you'll be notified right away. Now I'm going to talk about one of the most powerful tools a manipulator can use: charisma. Yeah, that's right. A lot of the time, the person who wants to control you the most isn't yelling, threatening, or pushing. They're charming. They smile. They seem kind, confident, likable, and that's exactly where the danger starts. Machiavelli once said, "A ruler doesn't need to be good, he just needs to appear good." That one line perfectly sums up the idea that appearance matters more than truth. A skilled manipulator gets this. They don't come at you with direct orders. They use compliments, attention, fake empathy. They show up as someone you trust, someone you admire, and little by little they gain access to your mind and your decisions. That's why charisma, when used by someone with hidden intentions, becomes a facade, a mask. They seem to be on your side, but deep down they're pulling the strings like you're a puppet. And the scariest part, you often don't even realize it's happening. This tactic is old, but it still works like a charm. Machiavelli understood human nature better than most. He knew people would rather believe in something that looks true than dig deeper to find what's really going on. That's why a Machiavellian manipulator always uses charisma as the first trap. They make you feel seen, heard, special, but it's all part of the plan. In practice, the manipulator works your emotions so you'll let your guard down. Then they start to shape your choices, your view of the world, even your feelings, all without raising their voice, slamming a table, or causing a scene. Just presence, sweet words, and loads of control. And here's the key point. When charisma is just a mask, you don't see a villain, you see a mate, a partner, a leader. And that is what makes the manipulation so dangerous. Now be honest with me. Have you ever trusted someone who seemed amazing, but later realized it was all just a front? How did it feel when you found out you were being played without even noticing? Drop your story in the comments. It might just open someone else's eyes. This is how the manipulator gets in. Smiling, complimenting, being the nice guy. They seem to understand you better than anyone else. They come across as trustworthy, sensitive, intelligent. But behind that charming image, there's a cold, calculated strategy. A strategy worthy of Machiavelli. Machiavelli knew that to gain power, brute force wasn't always necessary. Sometimes it was more effective to charm, seduce, and draw people in. And here's an important truth. Not every charismatic person is a manipulator. Charisma on its own is a valuable quality. The problem begins when someone uses that charisma as a mask, a tool to manipulate, control, and weaken others. This kind of person wins you over emotionally. They seem present, caring, attentive, but little by little they start isolating you, making you doubt yourself, slowly chipping away at your independence, and doing it all without raising suspicion. So why does it work so well? Because charisma lowers your guard. When someone seems nice, we naturally trust them, and the manipulator knows that. They don't yell, they don't impose. They persuade you, draw you in, and make it feel like the decisions are yours, when in reality they're pulling the strings behind the scenes. Machiavelli would say this is the most dangerous kind of power, the kind that doesn't look like power. It's the one that smiles, hugs you, and traps you with sweet words. The manipulator uses charisma as an invitation. But the real goal is emotional control. And by the time you notice, you're already stuck in a psychological loop, doubting yourself and needing them just to feel whole again. So stay sharp. Charisma is good. But when it's used as a mask for control, that's where the Machiavellian danger lies. If this message made you stop and think, or if at any moment you thought, wow, this actually makes sense, then drop a like. Your like shows that it's worth continuing to share this kind of content, the kind that goes straight to the mind and the heart. The partner who twists your words, the boss who praises you just to keep you under control. These behaviors aren't exaggerations. They are clear signs of something much darker beneath the surface: strategic manipulation. And this has everything to do with the ideas of Machiavelli, who saw power not as brute force, but as emotional intelligence used with cold calculation. The partner who makes you feel guilty for things you never said, who changes the version of events until you start doubting your own memory. That has a name: gaslighting, one of the most Machiavellian tactics that exist. Then there's the boss who compliments you in front of others, but uses that praise to keep you obedient. They create an emotional debt, a forced sense of loyalty. You feel special, but that feeling comes with a price: your freedom. These manipulators know how to use emotions as tools of control. And the worst part? Many times they do it with a smile. Machiavelli never said the manipulator shows up as a villain. On the contrary, they present themselves as a hero, someone who seems to be on your side, but slowly becomes the one controlling the narrative. And when you try to question it, the shift begins. You're overreacting. It was just a joke. I just want what's best for you. Phrases that sound harmless, but are full of emotional poison that paralyzes you. All of this pulls you away from who you really are. You start walking on eggshells, always trying to please, to avoid conflict, to seek approval, and the manipulator wins, without yelling, without threats, just with smiles, compliments, and subtle distortions. It's exactly as Machiavelli wrote: men must be either caressed or annihilated, and in this case, the affection is just the beginning of emotional destruction. Have you ever been in a situation where you said something simple, but the other person completely twisted your words and still made you feel guilty for something you didn't even do? That's one of the most subtle and dangerous methods of emotional manipulation. And the worst part, it often comes from someone who claims to love you. Machiavelli in his writings said that anyone who wants to control others must deeply understand human weaknesses, and in intimate settings, where emotions are most exposed, the manipulator finds it easiest to operate. A Machiavellian partner doesn't shout or argue openly. They plant doubt. They make you question your memory, your logic, even your own sanity. For example, you might say, "I didn't like what you did yesterday," and they reply, "You always complain about everything. Nothing I do is ever good enough for you." Just like that, the focus shifts from the real issue to making you look like the difficult, unfair one. Machiavelli claimed that illusion is a tool of power, and twisting words is exactly that, creating an illusion, a new version of reality, where the manipulator always comes out on top. In the end, you start thinking, am I really overreacting? Maybe it is my fault, and without realizing it, you begin to lose your voice, your clarity, your strength. The manipulator's goal is never direct conflict. It's silent control. And the partner who distorts your words does it masterfully. They win you over with affection, but hold you with guilt. They don't force control. They make you surrender, believing you're being fair. That's the essence of Machiavellian thinking in relationships, to create an emotional theater where you believe you're in control, when in reality, you've already been completely manipulated. This fake charisma is the gateway to manipulation. The person arrives with a warm smile, a charming way of speaking, and an apparently delightful personality. They quickly earn your trust, appear interested, present, and caring. But little by little, you start to sense that something's off. You feel watched, questioned, guilty over small things, and you begin to adapt yourself just to avoid ruining the mood or disappointing someone who, in theory, only wants what's best for you. That's how the game works, and the one who taught the rules, even if indirectly, was Machiavelli. He showed how the appearance of virtue can hide cold and calculated intentions. In The Prince, Machiavelli didn't say the leader had to be good. He said the leader had to appear good. And that's the exact logic many manipulators follow. Today, it doesn't matter what they do behind the scenes, as long as they seem trustworthy on the surface. The manipulator knows exactly what to say. They use compliments when they need your loyalty. They fake empathy when they want to weaken you emotionally. And by the time you realize it, you're already caught in a web of confusion, dependency, and fear of disappointing them. Machiavelli never wrote about romantic relationships or work environments, but the principles he described are universal. The power to manipulate without raising suspicion, to control without using force, to dominate using only words, gestures, and perfectly timed glances. And here comes the big question. If this person seems so nice, how do we know we're being manipulated? The answer lies in the details. In the discomfort you feel but can't explain. In the constant doubt about whether the problem is you. In the sensation of walking on eggshells for no clear reason. That's why recognizing this fake charisma is the first step to protecting yourself. Because, as Machiavelli would say, whoever controls perception controls the game. How to protect yourself? The first step is developing self-awareness. This means paying attention to how you feel during interactions with others. Are you making decisions with clarity, or are you just reacting? Do you feel respected or constantly in emotional debt, even without a clear reason? Machiavelli spoke about the power of controlling perception. The modern manipulator has learned this well. They make you believe everything is fine, while slowly pushing you in the direction they want. But when you begin to notice your own feelings and reactions, something changes. You stop being a pawn and start becoming a player. Second point, observe patterns. Manipulative people tend to repeat behaviors. They twist conversations, make you doubt your memory, use compliments as currency, and create an atmosphere of emotional dependence. You need to ask yourself, does this person empower me or weaken me? Do they set me free or hold me back? Machiavelli said that sometimes it's better to be feared than loved. And even though he said that in a political context, many people adopt this logic in personal relationships. They pretend to be empathetic, but deep down, they want obedience. They appear caring, but act like strategists. That's why the third, protection, is setting clear boundaries. When something hurts you, say it. When something feels off, question it. And if the person tries to shift the blame or silence you, that's when you need to stand your ground the most. Machiavelli wrote for princes, but the lessons apply to all of us. The best defense against manipulation isn't to distrust everyone. It's to trust yourself more, because those who trust themselves can tell when someone is trying to play with their emotions. And those who understand the game can choose whether to play or walk away from the table. Set firm boundaries. Charisma is not a reason to give up your control. Many people believe that when someone is friendly, charming, and well-spoken, it must mean they have good intentions. But that's not always the case. Machiavelli showed this centuries ago. He understood that power doesn't lie only in force, but also in the appearance of kindness. The modern manipulator has mastered this lesson. They know how to smile, listen, and compliment, but behind all that, there's a goal: to lead you exactly where they want, without you even realizing it. That's why having clear boundaries is essential. It doesn't matter how charismatic someone is. If they invade your space, disrespect your decisions, or make you feel guilty for having your own opinions, then something is wrong. Charisma should never be an excuse to ignore your own red flags. Machiavelli spoke of using appearances to win allies and disarm enemies. Today, that kind of strategy might be disguised as a friend who just wants to help, a colleague who admires you too much, or even a partner who says they love you like no one else. But if that admiration comes with control, that's manipulation, not affection. Your boundaries are your shield. When you say no, when you question, when you stand your ground, the manipulator loses power. They rely on your doubt, your guilt, your silence. That's why respecting your own feelings is the first step toward demanding respect from others. You don't have to fight, you don't have to be rude, but you do need to be clear. Machiavelli wrote for rulers, but today, each of us rules our own life. And if you don't set your own boundaries, someone else will do it for you. And if that someone is a manipulator, they'll use your own emotions against you. Learn to recognize the patterns, because once you see them, they lose their power. One of the greatest tricks of manipulation is appearing to be something it's not. And Machiavelli understood this better than most. In his book, The Prince, he makes it clear, the secret to power often lies in appearing virtuous, even when your intentions are purely strategic. Today, that way of thinking is alive in many relationships. The modern manipulator doesn't show up yelling or making demands. They show up smiling, offering support, being the perfect company. But over time, you start to feel like something is off. You find yourself constantly giving in, constantly explaining yourself, constantly questioning your memory as if you're being difficult or paranoid. That's the pattern. Recognizing it is the first step to protecting yourself. Every manipulation follows a cycle: charm, confusion, guilt, and control. If you can spot when someone is complimenting you just to earn your trust, or making you insecure to maintain control, you break the cycle. Machiavelli taught us to observe human behavior with cold precision, not to become cold, but to avoid being fooled. You don't need to study politics or philosophy. You just need to pay closer attention. Does this person make you feel free or trapped? Do you feel respected or merely tolerated? Are you making your own decisions or always asking for permission? These questions reveal patterns, and when you recognize a pattern, something shifts inside you. You stop falling into the same traps. You stop accepting crumbs disguised as affection. Machiavelli wrote about maintaining power, but you only keep your power when you understand what's happening around you. It's not about distrusting everyone. It's about learning to read the signs and trusting yourself more. Awareness is what breaks the spell, because once you see the manipulation, it stops working. Not all charisma is authentic. Sometimes behind the smile, there's a strategy. This sentence sums up what Machiavelli said centuries ago. For him, a wise ruler didn't need to be good, only appear to be good. And that mindset has been adopted by many manipulators throughout history. Today, the danger is no longer limited to thrones and palaces. It can be in your home, at your workplace, in your relationships, and even on social media. Machiavelli made it clear: power often hides in those who know how to use appearances to their advantage. And charisma, that charming, almost magical friendliness, can be the perfect mask. If someone makes you feel very special very quickly without any real trust built over time, pause and ask yourself, why? Is this charm genuine, or is it a calculated move to win your affection and later your obedience? We're not saying that everyone with charisma is a manipulator. There are people who are naturally charming and kind, but when charisma is used as a tool for control, it stops being a strength and becomes a trap. Machiavelli wasn't a villain. He simply described human nature as it is. It's up to us to use that knowledge to see beyond the surface. If this video opened your eyes, leave a like. That simple gesture shows you value content that helps you understand more about the human mind, psychology, power, and behavior. Take care, stay sharp, and don't let anyone control you without you even noticing.